So we'll talk about experiential learning in engineering and how that can help in engineering in different forms. So that will be our focus. So as sir already mentioned during the introduction, so both of us work in the academic group in MathWorks, Spandana and I. So we work with educators, academicians, research scholars, faculties on curriculum and different research projects using different parts of MATLAB Simulink in different forms. And I mean, we are part of this group called Customer Success Engineers, specifically for education. So our group essentially is, and we have like different people from different backgrounds. So since I'm from mechanical, Spandan is from chemical. Similarly, we have people from electronics, electrical, and then we talk with ourselves as well. And then we have a group who works with industries who are called application engineers. So we work with them also to get a flavor of how we use this in industry. So in that way, we can have basically projects which will be helpful for the industries, and that's also one of our focus areas. Specifically, our team works in making curriculum more interactive, which we will try to focus on in this session, and also research projects. So basically, there are multiple different research projects. So how we can kind of make them smoother, make them faster, and easier at this point of time. So that's one, I mean, basically our focus area. So we work with faculties throughout the country. I'm based in Delhi and Spandan is based in Bangalore. Currently, we both are at home, but that's how where we are based at, our offices at. And then that's our kind of the geography focus. And then we have people in different parts of the country as well. In terms of the company, just a brief overview. So currently, as you can see here, that we have like offices throughout the globe. The headquarters is in North America, Boston, and then which is basically in this region. And then there is the offices in Europe, Asia. In India, we have four offices: Delhi, Hyderabad, Pune, and Bangalore. And then we have around close to 5,000 staff as of now, and revenue as more of less as 1.2 billion plus. There are multiple users. Most of the users are from academia, as you all know, and then industries also use a lot in terms of application in different terms of industries. In terms of industries, if we talk about, there are people in all these sectors. Aerospace and defense and automotive are the biggest in terms of both revenue and usage. So if you think of any aircrafts like A380, Airbus, Boeing, so they are use it. There's something called model-based design, where basically we can design everything of an engineering product in one platform, and that's one of the focus in any of these aerospace, defense, or automotive applications. Starting from that, if we think of engineering anywhere, there are any engineering products that can be used, be it like energy production, electrical, electronics, communications. It can be any machinery, robotics. So all those areas, as long as there is something we can simulate, and that is where it goes in terms of a simulation in MATLAB Simulink. In terms of MATLAB Simulink, basically we'll talk about what those are. Um, and then those are in terms of the end application of industries, but also we have, like, if you think of domain, if you think of something like deep learning or data analytics, today's world, that is not restricted to like computer scientists were using this like say 30 years back, but now like people from every disciplines use deep learning, machine learning, and that is one of the key thrust areas. Like if we think deep learning or machine learning to be like a tool as say mathematics, then how do we use for engineering problems? And then comes use of MATLAB Simulink, which is primarily for engineers and scientists, how we can use these advanced tools at the end for all of these type of problems, which can be deep learning, which can be Internet of Things, which can be like motor power control, or any of these which are mentioned here. Because if you think of an end-to-end product, like a final product, all these things club together at the end of the day. We have control systems clubbed with signal processing, robotics, whenever we think of a final product. So that's interdisciplinary area is easier to model because we support all these type of disciplines. In terms of, as many of you know, MathWorks is a parent company, and then there are two core products, MATLAB and Simulink. So MATLAB is more of a scripting language, but there are also apps which we'll talk about towards the end. So MATLAB means Matrix Laboratory because matrix are the basic core of these things. And Simulink is more of a block diagram based approach. If you look into the figures here, so the top right one is more of a MATLAB platform. The bottom left one is more of a Simulink platform where we have a graphical approach. So we use block diagrams. So the car is shown here. So if you think of all the parts of the car, engine, then the battery, if there's an electric car, the throttle, brake, all of those we can have models as a block and then combine them to make a virtual car in the Simulink environment. So that's Simulink. And MATLAB is more of the scripting language where we write things, where we visualize. It's good for statisticals, machine learning tools, deep learning, all those different types of environment. Um, so this is about what we are. Now we'll talk about how we support this industry academia ecosystem, and then we come to how we use for something called experiential learning. So if you think of the people involved or the stakeholders, if you call it, in the industry academia, so there are research universities, there are universities, and there is people, there is academic colleges which provides undergraduate education. So all of them have their own focus areas. So research universities, they do either basic research or applicative research. They're more in the starting phase of an innovation, and then industry use that research and also use skill from undergraduate education. So all of these flows with each other, all of these people talk with each other. So if it has an undergraduate education, that might need to be used, sorry about that, so that needs to be used for research universities, and also for undergraduate education and industry. So that's how all these things club together. And MATLAB, we try to support all these environment, all these stakeholders here, because if they use the same platform, it becomes easier for knowledge transfer. That's essentially the goal here. Now if we think about where we are in terms of this ecosystem, so in this industry academia ecosystem, so typically what happens is people go graduate from high schools, they go from to colleges, and they get graduate from colleges, go for industries or higher research. So if so this data is taken from AICTE. So if I take their data, so in 2018-19 we have in 2018-19 we had around 10,400 colleges. In the next year there was another addition of more 500 colleges, so taking the number to 11,000. So this right figure shows the orange is the intake in AIs in these colleges. The green curve, the green bars are basically for enrollment. Black ones are the student passed, and blue ones are placement. So the number of intakes are almost double in terms of as compared to enrollment. So enrollment have so people going for other fields. The green and black ones are more or less similar, so people graduate more or less evenly. And then we see a sharp fall in this blue bar here, which is basically placement. So there is around 50% drop from graduate to placement. So that lets us ponder why that is happening, how we can bridge this gap so that people get placed in a more smoother way, so to say. Um, so if we talk with industries, or if we talk with what the system is like, we figured out that there is something that we can influence the undergraduate education with, so that people become more equipped to getting jobs just after fresh out of colleges. And also that helps in the research curriculum as well, because I mean essentially that leads to more research and people can go for higher studies as well. So all these experiences basically help them to get jobs at the end of the day. um, so if we think about this education platform, then what we realized is, if we do this classroom blackboard type teaching only, there are situations when, if you, this is like kind of a comic thing. So if we look into this guy here with the yellow, this what he is thinking, he's saying, I ever need to know this when the faculty is teaching through the blackboard, because they lose interest. And when they lose interest, the fact that happens is they do not remember something once they graduate. It just becomes a one time thing, they need to pass the exam. So just because if the faculty says that it is important, or if attendance is compulsory to attend the class, and if students attend that class, that does not kind of serve the greater good in terms of helping them to know this thing for a longer time, to have that in the memory and something that they can use. So that's what led to the thinking of whether we can use something in a more interactive, more intuitive learning environment, so that basically that remains in their memory, it remains in with them when they leave college and they go for anything in the higher studies or undergraduate, I mean industry jobs. um, so that leads to what we can do. One of the things, I mean, we do during our PhD is looking into this PhD comic page, phdcomics.com, which basically is a funny interpretation of the things that happen during PhD. And it shows here that this graduate student basically telling his faculty that this equipment was working a second ago, but it was not working when the faculty came in. And that happens. I mean, that happens to everybody, that at times something doesn't work. And then when it doesn't work, it is not that we fall. I mean, it's okay to get disheartened, but the fact is we learn from mistakes. Even when we do codings or anything, we get errors, and it is all those errors that help us to know something more in a more profound way. So we learn from doing. It's not like we just learn from reading the book. So we need to learn and then use that somewhere. So, and it's okay to make mistakes, because that is how we learn more things. We learn what not to do, and that is one of the crucial things during learning age. um, so that's what one of the focus area of us is, if we can create laboratories in the simulation environment, because it's not always easy to do experiments because of various reasons. So if we can create like virtual laboratories through our computers, then we can basically do the things that we read on paper in books, and then we learn from doing that. And that's one of the focus area that we want to see. And that helps in all times of education. That helps in K-12, which is the high school undergraduate education. So if we look into this learning curve here, so this orange curve is basically shows that the learning curve. So this is basically how we learn. So the learning curve is more smoother, and we learn more things if we do this learn by doing. When we do these projects, when we bring something from the book to the practical world, when we put theory to practice, and that helps in undergraduate, masters, PhD, and that helps in getting a job, because that's what industries also want to do. So now the question comes I mean, basically in terms of thinking, what do we basically need to do to do that? We all have experiments, we all have laboratories as well. The goal here is to uh, the best way to club those laboratories and do even have like both of them in the same environment, like having classroom teaching with virtual labs, so things like that. So now where that leads to is something called computational thinking, because computational thinking is something that leads to this kind of environment where we basically learn by doing. So if you think about what computational thinking, this is from, I mean, Wikipedia, or if you look into any paper, any journal papers, that's basically what is there in terms of computational thinking. There are four steps to it. There is problem decomposition, algorithm, pattern recognition, abstraction, and algorithms. So I was thinking of what can be a good example to do this. Um, so I'll just share a 2-minute story. So for example, when I came to this apartment where I'm staying in, we used to have a lot of problem with water. So essentially, water used to come every 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the evening, and we need to fill up a overhead pump and then use that water throughout the day. So we didn't want to waste water, so we were not running the pump for a longer time. And then what happened when we had guests over, we ran out of water. So this became a huge problem of what is an optimum time to run the pump so that we have water for all the people at the household. So I was thinking what can be done, and then I mean, a simple MATLAB script helped in terms of like if we just know how much water the tank can hold. So if we just decompose the problem, we basically have the tank, which if we know the capacity of the tank, and then we measure the flow rate of the water coming into the tank, we can just measure using a cup if we know the volume, and then a stopwatch. So once we decompose this problem into the smaller problems, and then we measure how much water we are using, we can just measure the volume of a bucket, and then measure over 3-4 days average how much water we are using. So once we have all those three problems, we can just write a script and then calculate how much time we should run the pump so that we have water for all the people. And then if we have guests over, we just change the number of people, which is the one of the input condition to the problem, and then we know how much more time we need to run the pump on. So this is a problem. Say for example, there's a problem which is a household problem. But now we are connecting that to like maths, physics, there's piping. Now we can make this more practical in terms of what is the loss in the pipes that leads to like fluid mechanics type of problem as well. So that is how things work. So if we have a problem, instead of just panicking, if we decompose those problems into smaller problems, find out what can be a good way to mathematically we express that problem and find out an algorithm. And then what helps is basically we change one condition, and then we basically know what extra thing we need to do. And now this can be used for everybody in the household, for different people in the different floors of the apartment, and so that becomes easily scaling up. So that's what basically, once we have an algorithm that can be used for everybody, and it does not just solve one person's problem but everybody's problem. So that's how we can think of different steps for any problem basically. And that is not, as I mentioned, this is a household pumping problem, and that is not only for engineering problems. That's what we do if we have to go somewhere. I mean, when the lockdown gets over, if we go for a travel somewhere, if we go to visit places, then what we do is we plan out what are the things we need for, if it's a 5-day trip, what are the things we need for the 5 days, and we they plan that. We learn from mistakes also, we learn from what we have done in the previous trips, and then we change accordingly. So that's how we decompose a problem, and we just think strategically instead of panicking in one given situation. And basically the, I mean, gist of computational thinking. So you can see that this is not something that computer scientists need, that is something that every person need, every engineer and scientist need, because that's how we address any problem. And that is what we need for all different types of courses, curriculums, and that is what helps big for industries as well. Because when you go to industry, when the students go to industry, they get exposed to various other types of problem which they are not aware of. So if they know how to decompose this problem, then they can fall into club all those pieces and then go ahead for solving a problem. So if we think about that computational thinking, if this algorithmic thinking, um, so this is what we call coding as well in some forms. But then it's not about just coding. There's something called learn to code. That is how we run the scriptics, the syntax. But the important thing is we also need to learn to do coding to learn. So if we do this coding, we essentially get to learn more things. If we do this computational thinking, and then that leads us to learning more things, we basically then know how to learn as well. And when once we know how to learn, then learning becomes a fun and easier thing to do. These are some things. This quote is basically by Steve Jobs, who mentioned that coding teaches how you think. And when we do this algorithmic approach of coding, it helps us thinking. And that is what we do in when we basically program something, a problem in MATLAB or Simulink. We basically solve an engineering problem. We code that problem to learn more insights about the problem. So if we now think about now coming back to curriculum, basically, if you think about a curriculum, a course, what we'll do is we'll just compare with this computational thinking approach versus a maths curriculum approach. So if you take, this is a standard curriculum, I mean a general one, not specific to any university. We just took from different universities and clubbed this together. So if you think of an electrical engineering curriculum, there are all these courses in different years, year 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we just highlight which are the course that use mathematics, so all these courses use mathematics. There can be engineering mathematics, linear algebra, complex theories. These are core mathematical subjects. But when we do mathematics, it's not limited to maths course, right? Because many of the other courses use these concepts. So then these are the core courses of mathematics, and this highlighted, this low light blue basically denotes the courses that apply mathematics. So there are loads of these courses which apply mathematics. So we learn differential equation, and then we use differential equation in a controls course maybe. So like that, we learn the mathematics behind it, and then we use this on this course. So when we use something, then what helps is getting a curve which is more of a learning curve, so it always remembers, because we are reinforcing the maths course which use in the maths concepts in those courses. So once we use those concepts, we have a learning curve because we don't forget. But if we look into computational thinking or coding or this programmatic approach, there are these courses which basically teaches how to program, how to code, or rather how to algorithmically think of a problem. There can be a programming course, there can be a numerical method course, and then any electives or design final year design projects. But the other courses also, uh, I mean, it might need programming, but if we just do programming in these courses and do the rest of the courses on just on theory, then what we get is a forgetting curve, because we don't have that learning curve. It does not reinforce the concept through courses. So we have a forgetting curve. It basically decays down. And if it does not use on some application, essentially what happens is we just forget that thing. But then that leads to the forgetting curve. But then if we look into where computational thinking can be introduced, where can all those courses be, then we have all these other courses. There are algorithms, signal systems, embedded systems, power and energy. All this, basically the bottom line for all these courses are mathematics and programming. So if we use these courses for programming, then we can have something of a learning curve, because they are using this. um, so our focus is then, how can we use MATLAB Simulink for all these courses, so that helps in the learning environment, that leads to something of an interactive learning, and students basically remember something for a longer time, that helps in their future. So in talking about that, Spandana will take over from here, in terms of how our solutions math works, because when we talk about math works, we talked about MATLAB and Simulink. So we'll talk about MATLABs to start with, MATLAB now, how that can help in the learning environment, so that this teaching can be more interactive and a good experience for students and faculties. Thank you so much. Spandana, you can take over from here.
Thank you, Shavik. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thanks everyone. Shavik until now covered what are the where the computational thinking can be introduced, giving an example of an electrical engineering curriculum, and how certain concepts can be reinforced by introducing computational approaches throughout, and not letting the forgetting curve take over instead of the learning curve, right? Now, when it comes to integrating computation with along in the curriculum, there are a lot of challenges. Now, I'll discuss few pedagogical goals that we want to achieve and the challenges that instructors may face. So first and foremost, we are talking about computational tools. We are trying to introduce problem solving approaches. The computational tool and learning that tool itself might become one challenge. Now, how do we complement a pen and paper approach and add a computational tool approach for problem solving? How do we get our students prepared to use computational tools? What are the resources that are available for instructors to be successful with the integration of this computational thinking? I'll address this in my slides now. And the second part is, even after we introduce the computational tool, are the students sufficiently engaged? What classroom practices need to be changed to keep the students engaged? And the third challenge is, am I assessing the students correctly? Like, I've been teaching these concepts, we are reinforcing it with computational tools. Now, how do I make assessments that ensure that students are learning something and I am capturing the right assessments? So let me take you through one by one. First, talk.
Yes, Pandana, one thing. So since we talked about that, we can run a poll now, and then just gauge, like, if any of you are using these kind of anything for experiential learning at this point. Um, Sir, is it possible to run on the poll number 1 now?
Which question you wanted to run?
Using this kind of anything for.
Okay, let me run this.
The first
Are you
one.
practicing interested in experiential learning?
Yes.
Shall can you go back to the screen, please?
Okay, let me run this. Okay, there is a poll question just raised in your presentation, in your window. Are you practicing interested in experiential learning? 87% say yes. I think 14, 12, 13% say no. Let's just wait for a few seconds. Okay, so the answer is 90%, close to 90% say yes, and 9 to 10% say no.
Thank you very much, sir, for running that poll. It is heartening to see that most of the audience do think that an approach like this is useful for students and helps in bridging the industry academia gap and so on. So now let me walk you through the entire MATLAB workflow and what is available in with MathWorks tools to enhance computational thinking and use these approaches for your teaching. And we'll run similar polls throughout the presentation. So please feel free to answer these. So now coming to the second part, that is what type of computational tools are available with MATLAB and Simulink or with MathWorks suite itself. So let's see. The first one that I want to talk about is something known as MATLAB Live Editor. So MATLAB, you must have seen, if you've already used MATLAB, you would have been scripting in a MATLAB editor page which saves files as .m files, right? And you must be knowing that every output that comes out comes in the command window, every figure pops up as a new figure window, and so on. So instead of having such a clunky environment for scripting, we have introduced newer environment which shows a much richer and more understandable way of teaching a certain concept. This is known as MATLAB Live Editor. So in your MATLAB page, you can open a MATLAB Live Editor and you can have sections where there is text. You can have sections where there are images. You can have drop-down menus to choose and demonstrate a certain concept. You can have sliders to show effect of certain parameters on the outputs and so on. So this kind of teaching enables very good interaction between professors and students, and also helps in accelerating exploratory learning. Okay, let me continue. So we were talking about MATLAB Live Editor, which is a very rich and interactive way of scripting, where you can have sections where there is text and sections where there is code and so on. And while you're teaching, you can execute this code and let the change the output. Students can see how certain parameters influence the output and so on, right? So this is one way to enhance student-teacher interaction during the teaching process. And the second way is something known as MATLAB apps. So if you go through the MATLAB window, you can see that we have a section for, or a tab for apps. And there are, depending on the toolbox that you're using, there are various apps. For example, in Math Stats and Optimization, on the middle window, you can see that there is a classification learner app, there is a curve fitting app, and so on. So depending on the concept that you're teaching, say, for example, if you're teaching a machine learning concept and you want to reinforce concepts with regards to classification and what are the algorithms that are involved in performing certain classification tasks, and how certain algorithms result in various accuracy values and so on, you can use these apps to very interactively demonstrate this concept. And if you don't find the app that you are looking for, you can create your own app, and this can be done using MATLAB App Designer, where you can create a very interactive app by dragging and dropping certain like sliders and graph windows and so on. So at the back end, it's running JavaScript, and without knowing various multiple languages to create a certain interface for teaching, you can use one interface, that is MATLAB interface, to create whatever graphic user interface that you want to use to demonstrate a certain concept. And you can also create standalone applications using MATLAB App Designer, and you can share it among your colleagues and so on. The third aspect is one challenge that we commonly hear with respect to professors who are trying to integrate computational tools is they don't want to spend their valuable class time teaching programming. Instead, they prefer to spend their time focusing on the subject matter. To this end, we have quite a few self-paced tutorials that are available, and I've categorized the tutorials here into two sections. One is introductory tutorials and the other is advanced tutorials. So all these introductory tutorials end with on-ramp. So we have MATLAB on-ramps, Simulink on-ramps, so on, machine learning, deep learning, and Stateflow on-ramps. So all these are short 2-hour introductory courses where you can get on speed with a certain concept. If you're not aware of MATLAB and you want to learn MATLAB, you can quickly open MATLAB on-ramp. This is available for free for everyone. And you'll have to create a mathworks.com account, and you can also get a certificate of completion when you complete these courses. So once you complete these courses, or ask your students to complete these courses, you can guide them through the advanced tutorials, that is in the next slide, where we have certain mathematics courses like MATLAB for linear algebra or nonlinear equations and ordinary differential equations and so on. So instead of spending time on MATLAB syntax and how to set up a differential equation problem within MATLAB, what you can do is ask them to take this course and make themselves familiar with this course. So this is all available on MATLAB Academy. So we have posted the link on the chat window here. So if you want to check it out, please check it out. And after the completion of any course, you can download that particular course certificate. Now, when it comes to, again, integrating programming in a certain subject, one most difficult thing that we see is like professors themselves who want to ramp themselves up, and you can use MATLAB Academy for getting yourselves up to speed with MATLAB and other associated products. So if you are trying to build a course from scratch, you can always take a look at MATLAB courseware page. So here we have a curated list of courses in various disciplines, and especially those courses which are very successful abroad. We have asked these professors to put them and curated this list on our MATLAB courseware page, and you have the entire teaching kit that is available for free download. In this teaching kit, you will have lecture notes, project ideas, the code that comes while the professors are demonstrating a certain concept and so on. You can download everything as it is and take it into your classroom. We also have something known as teaching with MATLAB pages. Say, for example, you're a physics faculty who is looking to teach MATLAB and you want to know where to start. So for this, you can go to teaching physics with MATLAB page, and you can look at what are the textbooks that are available, what are the course materials that are available, are there any resources, any web pages, and so on. All these are curated in teaching with MATLAB pages. So teaching dash subject with MATLAB, you can just search for it on Google and you can find these curated list of pages. The second aspect, now we have covered the computational tools aspect, right? Now the second aspect is how to keep the students engaged. For this, Shouvik mentioned already that to keep the students engaged, we should make them do some projects and make them learn from their mistakes and so on. As James Joyce rightly pointed out, mistakes are the portal of discovery. So let's see what one university known as Princeton University has done using what is known as project-based learning. So what they do is they take all their students out onto fields and then explore nature. And here for this particular course, what this professor does is he takes, this is a course on geological and geophysical research, and he takes all the students out to a forest to drill holes in trees and get the tree cores. And then students in turn turn these tree cores to images. They use images to analyze the trees and compare them across other students, and they all are looking at various different trees, and they learn what is this is known as cooperative learning. They are collaborating, they're learning how to collaborate, they're learning how to use computational tools, and finally, as professor calls it, he's transforming students into scientists with this kind of course. Another example of project-based learning or how to implement project-based learning is you are very well teaching math in a pen and paper approach. That is great. Now when you integrate computation, it takes one step above, right? So you're teaching a programming language, you're teaching how to set up these math courses in a computational environment, which the student will need in their real life, in their future, because programming is literally everywhere these days. And the next part is if we have associated it with certain type of hardware. For example, nowadays there are a lot of low cost hardware that are available. These students can use all these like math concepts, their programming skills, and build an actual product. They're holistically prepared. They've understood certain concept and they are capable of implementing it in real life. So what you see here at the bottom is what is known as an Arduino engineering kit. MathWorks has partnered with Arduino to come up with an engineering kit where we have made a robot which can sort of draw a certain picture like that is on the right. For example, this deer figure that is being drawn by this robot, and students are implementing these kind of projects in today's world. So let me show you an example of what is happening in a first year course called engineering exploration. So this school is known as KLE Tech. This is situated in Hubli, Karnataka. What they do is they have a first year course with 1200 students, and they're all doing projects and learning new skills in their first year itself. So irrespective of the discipline they come from, may it be biotechnology, may it be computer science, all these students are clubbed together, they form groups and they solve real world problems. And in the process of solving these real world problems, they are learning problem solving approaches, they are learning collaboration approaches, they are learning how to use hardware, they are learning, basically they are experiencing what is known as joy of engineering. So this is one university that we have collaborated with to get Simulink in their first year of course itself. So if you go on to the next slide, you can see here how in the videos, you can see how the students were actually building all these projects. Now, as I said, this low cost hardware is literally almost everywhere, right? Prototyping has become much, much easier and cheaper. And a lot of hardware companies are making low cost prototypes. And there are plenty of powerful hardware that is available. And these students are looking at these hardware these days to implement their projects in. So one thing that MATLAB as MathWorks, what we wanted to do was ensure that MATLAB software can ensure connectivity with all these hardware. So we have ensured that, say, for example, from within Simulink, you can have connectivity with Raspberry Pi and Arduino devices and so on. To get this connectivity, you should download what is known as a hardware support package. So here you can see we've downloaded a support package for Raspberry Pi hardware. And in this Raspberry Pi hardware, there are various features like capturing audio data, capturing video data, and so on. And also there is a very unique feature known as this command that you see in the red box here, that is known as ThingSpeak, right? So what that means is we have Raspberry Pi is predominantly used in IoT devices and prototyping IoT devices these days. So what we have ensured is ThingSpeak is our cloud platform where we have ensured that Raspberry Pi can push data into our cloud platform and also retrieve data from our cloud platform. So as you can see here, for IoT specifically, we have a new platform known as ThingSpeak, which can store data, which can collect, analyze, and act upon the data. So basically, this particular platform has MATLAB Analytics within it, and it can use various toolboxes from within MATLAB, like statistics and machine learning toolbox, curve fitting, mapping toolbox, and so on. And any hardware device like a Raspberry Pi can stand alone without any MATLAB installed. It can push data into ThingSpeak and then retrieve data from ThingSpeak and send certain alerts. For example, students have implemented projects where they analyze the humidity value, and if there is a rain forecast that is coming up, they will sort of send a message or tweet to all the farmers in the surrounding area to say that there is a probability that it will rain today, and so on. So these kind of things that can be achieved using ThingSpeak, hardware, MATLAB, and so on. So let's move on to the next section, where we've spoken about this low cost hardware. One hardware that is with every student is a mobile phone, right? So this mobile phone may be iOS or an Android device. MATLAB has good connectivity with Android and iOS devices too. So with MATLAB mobile app, you can do basic MATLAB functions. You can compute basic MATLAB within MATLAB mobile app. And also there is another thing where MATLAB mobile itself can act as a the mobile phone itself has a lot of sensors like accelerometer, gyrometer, and all these sensors, which the MATLAB mobile app can capture all the sensor data and stream it into MATLAB. To ensure this, we have something known as MATLAB Drive, which is cloud space for implementing MATLAB. So MATLAB is not just a desktop standalone version these days. We have brought MATLAB in the online world as well. So without any installation of MATLAB, you can open MATLAB in your Google Chrome or Safari or Firefox browser itself and do your MATLAB computations. And you can store your files in your MATLAB Drive. You can retrieve data from MATLAB Mobile, which is streaming data. You can get it into MATLAB and you can perform analytics on MATLAB online. Irrespective of where you are, you should not be limited by either you don't have the hardware or you don't have the say for example the right device and so on. We have ensured that everybody can get access to MATLAB irrespective of basically anywhere and for everyone. So to ensure this, we have something known as campus-wide access. So every institute that has subscribed to our campus-wide license program are getting campus-wide access, where every student, every faculty can have MATLAB mobile, MATLAB online, and everything, and the online courses and everything packaged in one program itself. So in this specific campus-wide license program, we are ensuring that currently we have about 200 universities in India which have taken up this campus-wide license. And more importantly, our teams does support a lot of these campus-wide license program institutes to help them adopt MATLAB and Simulink. And we want to ensure that access of computational tools to student and faculty happens in a very effective way. The idea is not to confine the students in computer labs, but it is to give them access anywhere and from any device. So now with having so many tools like online training, we have hardware support and so on, we are trying to have a good student engagement with students. And currently, with respect to MATLAB campus-wide license, we have almost 1,300 universities all over the world and almost 4 million students that can use MATLAB anytime, anywhere on their personal machines. Now, when we ensure that a software is available seamlessly to everyone, and we are also using it in our courses, now the third part about assessment becomes a very big challenge. Now, how do I set up the right assessment to ensure that the student has learned the right concept, and also ensure that this is not very burdensome for the professor? So traditionally, grading happens like this, right? So in the next slide, Shovik, can you move to the next slide? So traditionally, grading
Shall
happens
we have
when...
the second poll now?
Okay, sure. Do you have a
We can
second
just
poll?
yeah, we can have the second poll which says whether you have a campus-wide license. Sir, can we run the second poll now?
Yes, the poll is on.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, yes is 57%, no but interested is around, the last option is at the least 3%, and the first and second is almost at 55 and 48, something like that.
Okay, that's nice.
Yes,
Thank
yeah,
you.
no, I think yes is 40%, but interested is 60%.
Thank you very much for your answers. Let us continue with our how do we assess once we've integrated computational tools within curriculum. Now, how do we accurately assess the students? So traditionally, this is how grading happens, right? The professor is sitting here. You can see a bunch of answer submissions, and you can see that he's grading them one by one. Probably this effort takes 2 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks to get it done. Now, in modern day, students are expecting almost immediate feedback. So if you see, Shavik, can you please click the next section? Okay, so nowadays what happens is students will submit homework and they want almost instant feedback. So they want to improve and learn their skills almost instantaneously. So here, let's see how we can set up a problem statement where we can ensure this kind of instant feedback. So if we move on to the next slide, we can see what we have achieved with respect to a product known as MATLAB Grader. Shavik, can you please move on to the next slide? So traditionally, especially professors who are giving out assignments on MATLAB, what happens is, say for example, they have 80 students and they want to give out 3 MATLAB assignments. In turn, they will 80 students submitting 3 MATLAB assignments to an email of a person he'll end up getting 240 sort of programs that he has to execute and award marks, right? So this is something that is really very challenging for the professors, and we've tried to lessen this problem of theirs. So what we are doing is, instead of sharing say a PDF document like you see on the right, that is a digital or a physical handout to a student to implement it in MATLAB, what we have ensured is there is a new environment now. This is known as MATLAB Grader. So in this MATLAB Grader online environment, you can set up this entire assessment online, and you can set up your reference solution, and when the student attempts this assignment problem, the student's code will get automatically evaluated with the reference solution that the professor has set up. And and then finally the professor can get an Excel sheet of student metrics and so on. If we go to the next slide, we can see how currently professors do use MATLAB Grader. So MATLAB Grader is also capable for integration with the learning management system, and also it's possible, currently a lot of universities are using learning management systems like Moodle and Blackboard, Canvas and so on, and MATLAB Grader can integrate within that learning management system to give out assignments, conduct exams and so on. and to MIT Manipal. So it's the same software that is being used in both the universities. So students who learn MATLAB here are very well prepared to go to MIT, Massachusetts, or Stanford University and so on, and use their skills in those universities. So basically, the results they obtained were students which were well prepared for postgraduate studies, and the learning environment improved with expanded access to tools, and also they ensured that the competitive edge of their university is maintained.
Yeah, we can run the third poll here probably, sir.
Okay, the third poll is on. Are you practicing interested in experiential learning? Is that right? Okay, the poll is on. The question is, what do you find can most suit you to practice experiential learning? So the answers are coming in. It is either live editor or online or graded or academy online training. So most of them currently it is at MATLAB online is at 40%. The second is MATLAB online training is 34%. MATLAB live editor is at 24% and MATLAB grader is at 11%.
Okay,
We'll
thank
wait
you
for
so much.
a few seconds. Let's wait for another few seconds. Okay, and now the final results have come. The top is MATLAB Academy online training 35%. Next is MATLAB online 27%. Then MATLAB live editor 25%. MATLAB grader is at 11%.
Thank you very much for those of you who answered the poll. We were just talking about how students have to be industry ready, right? Let me give you another example where students who did not join another industry or did not join another company, but they started their own company. So this comes from IIT Madras, where we are talking about, if you've heard of a company called Ather Energy. This is the India's first electric two-wheeled scooter, and they are also designing charging stations using a concept known as model-based design that Shoaib initially talked about. So these students were students at IIT Madras, and they started out with using MATLAB campus-wide license. They learned computational tools in their courses, and then finally they participated in a lot of competitions which involved electric vehicles and so on. And then they went on to start a startup within the IIT Madras Startup Research Park. So in this startup, they had to design and produce India's first intelligent electric scooter, and they used model-based design to simulate and optimize the scooter design and to generate a production code for its control software. So basically, whenever engineers are designing an automobile, what happens is there are plenty of electronic components within this automobile that needs to be programmed, right? So if manually programming these automobiles and checking for consistency, checking for that there are no errors and so on, it's a very tedious task. So within Simulink, there is a way by with one click you can generate code which can go into these embedded devices, which are production quality code actually. So this code, which is in, say, depending on the hardware, it could be C++ code, or depending on the complexity of the hardware, if it is deep learning, you will need other types of code. If it is FPGA, you will need HDL code and so on. All these from within MATLAB and Simulink environment, you can go into C++ and other programming languages with one click of a button. So this company started out with campus-wide license, and then they became a startup customer, and then they used our startup license, and then moved on to becoming a commercial partner with us, where we have also supported some of their projects, where with our consulting teams to help them get India's first electric vehicle out. So we've now talked about how Ather Energy developed its two-wheeler scooter, and then especially when we are talking about industry-ready products, we are not talking about specific discipline. We are not talking about electrical engineers who are building an electric scooter. We are talking about a combination of everyone. Like there are electronics engineers who are looking at embedded systems. We are looking at electrical engineers who are designing control systems. We are looking at mechanical engineers who are looking at CAD design and a lot of things, right? So this is a combination of multiple disciplines that come together, and it's not just in this building this electric vehicle. One more key thing that we are looking at where there is huge industry demand is in AI. So especially the data science, data analytics, and artificial intelligence fields, we are seeing that there is huge demand for skills for people who can understand data, build models on that data, and also make sense of what the data is and give reasonable predictions that are useful for their companies. So what we are looking at is, if you can see the screen, we are looking at there are the screen, for some reason I'm not able to see it. If everyone else is able to see it, I'll continue. Sir, can you please confirm if everyone is able to see this screen?
Yes, yes, yes. It's visible.
Okay, sure. So on the right hand side, you can see the number of job postings which are seeking machine learning and AI skills, that is consistently increasing, right? So between September 2016 to September 2018, there has been almost 7-fold increase in number of job postings in this sector. And if you see, there are a lot of big companies like Google, Amazon, Facebook, they are investing a lot on specialized talent, hiring the right talent. They're building products which are related to AI, and they're looking for people who are capable of handling this kind of complex challenges. So we have to ensure that our students, irrespective of which discipline they come from, they can come from chemical engineering, biotechnology, to anywhere. If they're interested in data analytics and if they have good skills in data analytics and AI, we should encourage them to take up, because especially because there are plenty of jobs that are available in this sector. So let me walk you through a brief workflow of AI. What is there in AI? Why is there so much demand for AI? So let me give you a brief overview of what is AI and why is there so much demand for AI. First and foremost, from when we talk about AI, we're looking at a lot of data. So industries have plenty of data. It could be consumer data in terms of what the feedback is. It could be how consumers are reacting to certain products. It could be data could be something based on what hardware devices are acquiring. It could be if you're using your mobile phones, for example, every place that you're navigating in Google Maps is some form of data, right? So there is humongous amount of data that is available. Data is now known as the new oil. So every company is scrambling to getting more information about their users, their likes and dislikes, and so on. So when we are getting so much amount of data, now we have to clean it and prepare the data to make sure that we can understand some trends in that data. So we have to derive some human insight from that data. So for this, we'll have to build some models. These models, typically, if they are using machine learning or deep learning approaches, we call them as AI models. And sometimes to build these models, we'll have to make use of big computers, powerful computers, which can optimize the parameters to ensure that the model gives you high accuracy. And also these models should be interoperable, right? If you're using one platform, say you're using MATLAB, and your colleagues are using, or your collaborators or your reseller partners are using some other platform, it should be shareable easily and it should be interoperable. So it should be able to migrate from one environment to another. So we have ensured that our MATLAB can interoperate with multiple other open source available softwares like Python and so on, and various frameworks like PyTorch, MXNet, or various other frameworks. So once we have the model ready, we have to integrate it in the complex system, right? It could mean if you're building, say, a self-driving cars, you're designing a self-driving car and you have acquired a lot of vehicle data set, or we've acquired a lot of data set, video data with respect to how vehicles are moving on roads and so on, and then you've built a model to accurately describe how the car should navigate in this complex environment. Now this algorithm should go into some if you're talking about self-driving car, it should go into some board which can control the steering, it can control the brake, gears, and so on, right? So when we are thinking about deploying it in real world, we are thinking about interfacing it with various other hardware. So when we are integrating it in this such a complex environment, people generally face a lot of problems, because depending on the vendor, the programming language varies. Depending on, for example, NVIDIA, for example, they use CUDA code. Intel and ARM, they use C++ code. So depending on which hardware that you're targeting, you have various languages, and you will have to accommodate each device for deploying your code. And once you do this, if you are not getting the right output, or if you're not getting the right performance from that board, you'll have to change it and improve, get a better hardware and so on. So this process is very tedious, and in this stage, a lot of companies face a lot of problems. So we have to ensure how the programming language that you're using should be accommodative of integrating in a very complex system. With MATLAB specifically, a lot of companies are using MATLAB for its code gen capabilities, and also for the end-to-end, right from data to the deployment aspects of things. So all these can be done in one environment without having to move to various environments for certain aspects. So when we are talking about right from data preparation to integrating it in the complex system, and finally the deployment part, you can either think about deployment as, say, writing code into this controller that will go into your self-driving car, or you can think about it as a web app where you can drag and drop a certain image and get a prediction out on the web itself. So something like this can also be called deployment. So depending on your application, this workflow, you can fit this workflow anywhere. And as I say, I want to reinforce that this is irrespective of which discipline your students are studying. These there is plenty of job opportunities that are available all the way from data preparation to the deployment stage. So when unfortunately, as we don't have enough time to cover the basics of machine learning or deep learning that you might be interested in, you can look at some of the free courses that are available. We have two courses which are known as Machine Learning on Ramp and Deep Learning on Ramp. These are free, and they will take you through how MATLAB can do machine learning and deep learning. And also this is accessible directly on the web. You don't need to download MATLAB for accessing these courses. So feel free to just create a mathworks.com account and access these courses. And there are a lot of hands-on exercises, tasks, video tutorials, and so on. So you can check this out. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to.
Sir, we can run the fourth poll now, and then we can go for the question. Can we run the fourth?
Okay.
Sure. Which is, are you interested in MATLAB AI too?
Yes, the poll is on. I think mostly yes. I think
Okay,
it's a
nice.
very, very
Okay.
simple poll, and no,
Yeah.
mostly it is
Sure.
it is 1998 and 2. Okay, when it comes to question, no, when it will be since this is only a chat-based question.
right.
If you have already picked up some question yourself, you can answer.
So
Otherwise, I
Anand
can-
mentioned people asking for demos. I mean, we could not go for the demos because of two reasons here. Because of one is the time shortage, and the second is we didn't want to shuffle screens a lot, because we tried once and then it got stuck, as you can see. So we didn't want to go to the MATLAB environment as well during this 1 hour presentation. But what we'd like to do also in the end is, sir, if you can run the last poll. So that last poll basically if we want to do a MathWorks webinar or hands-on sessions, what can be good topics? Because many of the questions, as Anand mentioned from the chat, is on specific demos. So if we run the last poll, which is more of an understanding from our end in which topic we can do a session type thing.
The last poll is on. The last poll is for us to understand what would you like to learn in future MathWorks webinars. I think this will be good even for us to host the next session in the next season from MathWorks. The answers are you like machine learning and deep learning, or you would like model-based design with Simulink, or physical modeling with Simscape, or automatic C++ code generation from MATLAB. Fifth one is wireless technologies, which includes antenna design and 5G. You can just click on whichever you wish to vote for, and we will get the answers quick.
Yeah, Anand mentioned about some of the demos. I mean, we could, again, apologies, we cannot go to that, but it will be a good platform for us from this, and then we can plan future sessions. In the meantime, Anand, also, if there is any specific question from the chat window that we want to bring up, we can talk about that.
There were some few comments saying, the session could have been a little more technical. Because in this 1 hour, you were able to cover broadly. I would say it's like a broad coverage. So maybe people expected in some area we go a little deeper. Maybe the next session we can think like that. Yes,
definitely we can do that. Yeah, I mean, since this was the first one, this was definitely, we agree that this is more of a broad session. But yeah, there are loads of depth we can go in any of the segments or in the technical domain specific as well. So what we can say is, if there are specific, I mean, we are running this poll as well, and there are specific things you want to do for your student group or any faculties on any specific domains, feel free to reach out to us. These are our email IDs as well, and then we can plan. I mean, in the future, as part of ICT, as part of MathWorks, as part of anything, we can plan that, or we can do just WebEx sessions for students as well. Yeah, thank you so much, sir, for organizing this and having us here.